Brad Pryor here with Grit Branded. Today I'm hanging out with Miss Jenna.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. You know, the weather's nice, 75 and sunny. I can't complain. I'm like, can it be like this in Texas all the time? Because sign me up. I'm here for it.
Wait till Monday.
Yep.
It's supposed to be 36 degrees.
Okay. Why are you taking my Friday down like this? Why are you doing this to me?
Yeah, you got the whole weekend to prepare for it. I'm trying to help you.
You're right. I'm going to enjoy this 75 and sunny, pretend it's like this all year.
Yeah.
And then I'm actually not sad about the cool weather coming because I'm a Midwest girl. So one of the things I had to get used to moving down here was like, we don't really have 4 seasons, you know? So I'm not too mad about a little crisp air.
Yeah. Don't blame you. What part of Midwest?
Northeast Indiana. I'm a Midwest girl from Northeast Indiana, and my mom's side were a farming family, which I never actually had much to do with it. I had other passions and interests growing up. I was a dancer and cheerleader and obsessed with sports. So it's kind of, my parents are always like, it's so full circle now how, you know, you grew up in rural America. So I knew the rural America values, and grew up in the country and playing in cornfields and, you know, driving 45 minutes to school and whatnot, and appreciate those values. And, but now it's a little different, that my life's now revolved around this Western rural America agriculture lifestyle.
They're good people, though.
They are. I mean, it's one thing I always tell anybody. You know, I have a lot of people. I didn't grow up in this industry, so I'm probably 7 or 8 years in, which isn't a long time compared to a lot of people that have done, you know, been in this industry their whole life. And so I have a lot of friends from college and high school that never have been in this industry before, never, you know, have even seen a rodeo sometimes. And I always tell them the biggest thing that when you come into this industry, what consumes you is the people, what you love about this industry. And, you know, I kind of almost left I did leave for a couple months the industry and came right back into it. And it was the people is one of the greatest things about this industry. That I've worked in sports and a lot of other industries that have a lot of cool people, but there's something about the uniqueness of these people, of us, and the common values and beliefs. And yeah, not everybody believes every single thing the same, but it's a special lifestyle and way of life. And I'm grateful that I got led here kind of to be part of it.
I think it's kind of like the heartbeat of America. I know it's an old school Chevrolet model of saying that, but I feel like rural America is the true values of what America's found on: heart, the soul. Because when, you know, I've had a couple of people on podcasts that have actually given me some ideas about, you know, when Vietnam happened, when all the stuff, everybody goes back to the cowboy culture, urban cowboy, Yellowstone, all the things, because they feel the warmth of that community.
100%. I mean, and what we're living in now is post-COVID, right? Yep. That's what COVID, another like life-changing moment, just like, you know, Vietnam and some of those moments in time. But that's what COVID I feel like did for us. You know, we got all separated, and when it was time to come back together, that's what everybody wanted. They wanted to have that slowness. They wanted to have that authenticity with people, those real relationships. They wanted to go experience the world that wasn't such a big, you know, as hustle bustle maybe as the city. But I think that's a great point. Like, it took us back to, you know, the core of what America was founded on, and who we are as people. And, you know, when a lot of those things were, I don't want to say they were taken away, but, you know, a lot of things shut down through COVID. So we were forced to find other ways to live and entertain and engage and utilize our time. And I think it really was something that, like, you know, took us back to a simplified life. And obviously it's been a while since that's happened, but it's cool seeing how much of that has stuck around with the general public. And I know that everybody loves to say, like, cowboy's cool right now, but cowboy's been cool forever.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to continue to be cool. And I think, you know, it's whether the big cities are embracing it right now, but, you know, even in Hollywood, when you turn on the TV, and whether it's a cowboy channel or, you know, other channels that are doing Western programming, you can turn to almost any channel and find some type of this core Americana values in what you're watching, more so than ever before. And I think the more that continues to, you know, thrive, the more it's going to stick around.
Yeah, I think it's going to sustain too. I think people that have come to us or come to our little world over here, I think, are not leaving because they had a feeling of what it was not to be a part of it. Now they have their home. You know, have their home base. they have that friend they can actually call and will show up in the middle of the night for them or what have you, through those relationships. But I think it's here to stay.
I agree. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. And everybody I talk to that's not from this industry too, the authenticity. I'm like, I have never lived or never worked or been part of a community that is more authentic than this. And when I came into this industry, like I jumped head first because I knew I was like, they'll sniff me from a mile away if I try to talk about something like I'm an expert and I haven't done the homework to learn it and embrace it and be fully engaged in it. That's it. And people want that authenticity now. Like people can see through it. And when you get into this world and this culture, there is just that feeling of home and that warmth of, you do have a neighbor that you can call and, no matter what the situation is, they'll give you the shirt off their back, and that's something that I feel like, seems rare sometimes. And so when you find that, you want to hold on to it.
Yeah. I don't know if it's happened to you, but like people that have come into the industry, they make the assumption that the cowboy world, we're not that smart.
Yep.
Like, and you're sitting there and they're looking just to appease that you have a brain and you know how to use it. It's like, we're not dumb.
Yeah.
We're just good old people.
Yeah. And it's funny because I was obviously on the outside. So I was one of those people when I came into this industry, that was the first thing was, another outsider. Like she's going to come in and try to, tell us how to do things. And that's a natural reaction to anybody, but my mentality was exactly kind of what I said of like, no, because this industry is so authentic and they know what they're doing, I have to listen and watch and engage and be part of it. Where when people come in and they try to immediately, and I obviously want to take this thing to the moon. Like I'm so passionate about this industry, and what we do and what we stand for, and rodeo and Western sports. But I knew I wasn't going to walk in here and tell everybody what to do I've had a lot of really great experiences. And I've been able to bring a lot of experiences in from the outside to help grow this sport and this industry. But those two things have to work in tandem. You have to bring in knowledge while accepting the knowledge of things that you've never had experience in, that you've never lived through. And I think that's where, some of that can trip up. And the people that don't last in this culture or this industry are those ones that come guns a-blazing, wanting to speak without listening. Because the greatest educators that I had coming into this industry were the ones that have been in it and have made this industry successful. It's not like, if the whole cowboy culture was dumb and didn't know how to do business, we wouldn't have an industry, right? We wouldn't have any of this stuff, Now, are there efficiencies and is it hard to get over some traditions to say, hey, like, this is how we've always done it, but there might be better ways? Right. Yeah, that's a challenge, But, that's what I think is one of the fun challenges is that when you finally get that click of like, they get it and they see, this might be a better way. But you have to know how they've done it before or in order to be able to even get to that point.
Yeah. Or get a chance, because a lot of people, they'll shut you down, like you said, if you come in there and they know everything about everything. And you're like, well, you know real quick. Just like if I walked in a freaking tech development center somewhere or AI center, I would be lost as I could be. Like it's a building. It's got a bunch of blinking lights. Yeah. Are we on a runway? I don't know.
I get lost in Excel spreadsheets sometimes. Right. Like screw the AI sometimes. I'm like, I don't know. There's a lot of numbers going on here. Yeah. So I think everybody has their strengths and weaknesses, and there's always that. I went to college. I did undergrad. I did grad school, and I learned a lot there. I'm very grateful for all the education I have, but I also know that there's a lot of people that are just as successful as me, more successful than me, that didn't take the college route. And there's not a good or bad way, in my opinion. It's what works for you. Mm-hmm. It's no different than people that send their kids to private school, homeschool, public school. What works for you is what works for you. But none of those roads are necessarily leading you down they're not as smart as this person, they're not going to be successful. Because a lot of that comes from the characteristics of, the hard work, like the all those fluffy words that we use all the time. I'm like, there are people that, they have 5 degrees, and they might be more successful than someone that didn't go to college. But then there's also some really unbelievable entrepreneurs that have made million and billion-dollar companies that didn't spend the money to go to college, and that's okay too. And they've been much more successful than some people that are.
Yeah.
But we need all of them.
Right.
But those assumptions it's hard sometimes. Like, just because you're not in the big city.
Yeah.
I've lived in a big city. I live in I grew up 18 years in a town of 1,000 people. So yeah, I've seen, as a lot of people have, I've seen both sides. Not saying one's better than the other. There might be some more opportunities here, than there are here, but that just gives you an opportunity to create your own opportunity.
Yeah. I've met people that couldn't read. I've met people that couldn't drive or never driven in their life, but they're very intelligent people, and they're very good at what they do. But I feel like, I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel like in this day and time, as long as you're not going after like a teaching degree or something like it, you really don't need a college education right now. The workforce is starving to death for just raw talent that will work hard.
Yeah. And to your point, like there's certain things, skill sets you have to have for certain jobs. Absolutely. I would say the biggest thing for me going to college, and, I do it 10 times over because I loved it, but I think it was for me to see the world, a bigger world.
Mm-hmm.
I had to learn how to deal with people that weren't like me, that came from different backgrounds. I had to learn how to live on my own and do my own laundry. And people do that without college too, But I think for me, I learned more, I think, about myself and how to handle different situations and growing up in those situations than I would have had maybe if I had stayed at home, And that's unique to me. But there's definitely a place for both situations.
Yeah. So you work for Teton Ridge.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do exactly for them?
So I'm the Senior Director of Content Marketing and Athlete Relations. It's kind of evolved over the past year, and that's a new role that I've kind of taken in the past couple months. But I've really worn a lot of hats. I came in handling social content, athletes, marketing, and it really, I'm coming up on my 4-year anniversary. And so, we've grown a lot in 4 years. But I really have worn so many hats that it's like, that's my role and that's my title. But sometimes you see me running through the NFR, trying to hunt down tickets or a drink for a guest on stage, or, out at a shoot all day, doing a video shoot with athletes. We're getting ready for some exciting, for some fun events we're hosting at NFR. We've filmed a new documentary with Rocker Steiner. So the cool thing, I think, for me in the role that I do have is I get to touch a lot of different parts of the business. But at the end of the day, it's all within this Western sports media and entertainment, which I've always been my passion has always been sports and entertainment, or sports and events. I grew up watching sports with my dad every night, basically. So I've always had a passion for sports. I knew I wanted to go into sports marketing. I didn't realize I was going to be in Western sports. I was in collegiate sports, professional, mainstream professional sports. So I'm kind of one of those weird unicorns of I have so many passions and different elements.
Right.
It's hard to say this is exactly what I do, but that's what makes it cool. My job really awesome is that I get the opportunity to, to have so many touch points on things that we're doing and growing, and big ideas that, at the end of the day, my ultimate goal is how far can we take this thing,
Right.
this industry. Like I've fallen so in love with this Western sports industry, and there's so many people who've never seen a rodeo. Right. There's so many people that I'm excited that every day I wake up, I'm like, how am I going to get more of these celebrities into this world? How do I get more of my college friends into this world? Because I say, once you go to one event, you're done. It's hooked. All you need to do is get those suckers, those people in the building, and it's game over, and meet some people, and you're a lifelong fan. And there's so many people that have never been exposed that, it's a really big driver for me of how do we keep bring in more money from mainstream sponsors, to put more money in athletes' pockets, to bring more money into you know, the cities and events that we're hosting bring in more tourism dollars. There's just so much opportunity that lies ahead for how big we can grow this thing to make it just as big as, you know, other sports.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people do the same thing that you are doing to some aspect just to get people in the industry, because we get them here, we need to keep them here.
Yep.
And, you know, if Teton Ridge gives me some tickets to the NFR, I'm not going to give them to a buddy. I'm going to give them to somebody that's going to be an end user that needs to be exposed to the sport, that's never been exposed before. That's to me is, if you gave me a set of tickets, I'm not going to devalue them by giving them to a friend.
Yeah.
You know, I would do that with my own stuff, but not, you know, and I feel like a lot of that happens through our industry. We all kind of do that for each other and trying to plug into people to get them exposed to it.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, you know, and it's how do we continue to find these opportunities to bring people in. And we're always trying to find those new ways, whether it be through our events, whether it be, you know, what we're programming on the Cowboy Channel. We just came out with 2 new documentaries. Buckle Down, which is a follow-along doc with the bareback riders in the past 2 years at NFR, and then Hell on Wheels with Rocker Steiner. And, you know, even Hell on Wheels, it's funny because I feel like people either love or hate Rocker, right? Mm-hmm. And it's been a really cool, but he has so much mainstream appeal as an athlete. And it's been a really cool thing to kind of sit in the front seat to watch. This past year before the American, we did some PR with some DFW based TV news stations and whatnot to promote the American. And they came out and did a whole story on Rocker, and you know, this whole bad boy of rodeo, and he's sitting there, he's not in normal cowboy clothes and whatnot, and he's like, you know, I love this culture, I love this industry, but I don't necessarily wear a cowboy hat everywhere I go, but I still believe I'm a cowboy. And there's a lot more to it, but the craziest thing was seeing the difference in when the news station put up the video compared to when we put it up within the industry. It was a lot of mixed bags in the industry. Oh, we love Rocker. Oh, you know, we're not necessarily fans of Rocker. But the outside world, every comment was eating this kid up. They were like, I don't know who this kid is. I don't know. I've never watched rodeo before in my life, but I like that kid. And that's the opportunities of where, you know, I'm big on utilizing our athletes to celebritize them, to make, you know, when you connect with somebody, that's what makes you a fan. That's the very base of sports is why are you a Kansas City Chiefs fan? Most people are going to say because of Patrick Mahomes. If you weren't already, you know, die hard, it's Patrick Mahomes or Travis Kelce or Taylor Swift. Like, those are the 3 reasons, you know? And it's because you connect with somebody, whether it be their story, whether it be their personality, whatever that is. And, you know, we've just touched the surface, in my opinion, on how we utilize these athletes to be able to connect outside mainstream. But it was just wild. And even today I was going through some of the comments on the latest episode, and there was a comment on there, and it was like, I've never seen a rodeo. I don't even know who this kid is. And it was like 5 sentences. I mean, a whole paragraph. And he's like, but I'm hooked. I got down this rabbit hole, and now I'm ready to go jump on a bareback horse and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, that's the coolest thing to me, you know, where you're like, hey, it's working. So that's that point. Like, we all have, I think, a due diligence of bringing in people because that's how we grow. There's only so much money to go around with, you know, and I'll use sponsors. Like, yeah, there's going to be new companies that come up and entrepreneurs, but you can only go to the same companies so many times to keep bringing in more money for, you know, whatever ag and FFA and 4-H and, you know, rodeos and rodeo committees. There's thousands of rodeos around the world, or around the country, and you can't keep going to the same well. So how do you change that? We have to bring people in to understand why they should invest in us. Yeah.
And support us. Mm-hmm. But if people would just meet Rocker's, he's cool anyway. He's just a little shit. Yeah. With an attitude, but he knows how to shut it down. And be personable.
He does. And that's, you know, when we started, I was on the road with them quite a bit for the documentary, which was, you know, I've known Rocker for a couple of years, but it's hanging out with him a lot and then like being with him all the time. You know, and we have like a brother-sister relationship. And so I was excited because it was funny when we first announced it. people were like, oh, we're going to see all of this, he's such a bad boy. We're going to see him jumping off roofs and drinking all the time and just doing all this crazy shit, And the best part about it for me was I already knew who he was. I've been around him enough to know, he comes from a good family. He has the biggest heart you'll ever meet. He stops and talks to every kid he ever comes up to him. And I kind of kept chuckling inside because I'm like, it's gonna piss people off that don't like him. The biggest thing this documentary is gonna do is everybody's gonna get to see who Rocker is. And Rocker's such a humble guy that when he donated $10,000 to the Houston Children's Hospital after he won Houston and $10,000 to Cook's Children's Hospital here in Fort Worth, he didn't want to tell anybody. He was like, he's like, I'm not here to brag about that. I'm just doing a good deed. I'm like, but people need to know you're doing this because people need to know that you're like, Cowboys are giving back. We're giving back to the people that give to us, And so what was cool about it was I'm saying, hey, these people are going to be the people that want a reason to not like him, they're going to realize that you're going to get to see all the good stuff. You're going to get to see, we were just watching the upcoming episode. You're going to get to see him go interact with the children's cancer patients at Cook Children's Hospital when he when he presented the check to him. You get to see him with his family cooking breakfast and how excited he is to see, for his mom's pancakes. You're going to get to see him do all of, signing autographs, giving a glove away for an auction for a family that was in need. That's the stuff that I was the most excited for people to see because there's this perception because he's such a big personality on and off the dirt. They just associate that with all this negative connotation. And that's again, how we're growing the sport. Guess what? We're doing a documentary and you're getting to see a completely different side of him that you're going to connect with. That a lot of us that know Rocker, we're lucky because we get to, and a lot of athletes, right? We're lucky because we get to have these experiences with them. We know who they are. But the world doesn't get that ability necessarily. Fans don't get that ability as well. So it's our responsibility to say, hey, let us make that connection. Let us get that human connection for you to where you become the biggest fan and you want to be at all these events and, giving back in these same areas. Yeah.
Well, last night you were at Brombos too, the Cowtown Art thing with too, and he was there, Rocker and JB and a couple other guys, and they just blend right in. Rocker, I think he made 3 laps around their square. They're just chit chatting and patting people in the back, and he always makes the point to say hi to me. I try not to bother him because I don't want the space. I'd want my space, but anyway, it's cool to see them mingle like that, and JB taking pictures with kiddos.
Yep.
I mean, that goes a long ways with me because I like to give back to kids and stuff, and be involved like that, to watch them take the time to do that when they don't have to.
Completely. And, I a lot of what I do is working with athletes. I've worked with a lot of mainstream athletes, NFL, NBA, MLB, before they were, when they were in high school, when they got drafted to even post. And I still have the same passion for athletes here of how do we make them bigger, right? But the coolest thing about these athletes, it's a blessing and a curse. They are the most accessible professional athletes in the world. Yeah. To the point where we just got back from PBR team championships. Every fan can meet any athlete because they know exactly what door they're going in and out of, because there's security getting in the building, but there's not security taking them on the bus, taking them to their hotel where they're then surrounded by security. If you want to meet them bad enough, you can, or at a rodeo, you can easily walk up to them, and 99.9% of the time they're going to, hey, how are you? Because they also had heroes. They got to experience, their heroes are who helped shape them. And they want to give back to the youth the same way. But I say, as much as I say that, they're so personable. And you can go walk through the airport. We fly for PBR, we fly on the weekends, obviously. And so a lot of times, a lot of them are based here in DFW. So you'll have a plane a lot of times that's 40% professional bull riding athletes.
Yep.
And the rest of these people, besides the fact they have cowboy hats on, it helps that we're coming from Texas. There's not as many questions. But these people have no idea that the stardom and the legendary status that they're sitting amongst. Yeah. It's crazy because they just look like normal humans living their normal lives. And how many of those athletes also have come home during the week and have normal jobs, whether they're entrepreneurs, having their own welding company, their roll-off services, whatever that may be. And that's so different than mainstream athletes, which makes it much more humbling and personable. And that's the really cool side of it. The side that I say is a curse is that we need to treat these athletes. We need to be able to celebritize them and make them feel they're putting as much work in preparing for gold buckles and, you know, big events as much as other athletes are, but they're not making anywhere near, they're not making guaranteed money usually. They're not doing any of this stuff. And that's where it's like the more that we get out and tell their stories and put them in front of, you know, red carpets at music awards and get them throwing out the first pitch at Rangers games and getting them in those places where non-rodeo fans are, the more that they become, the value that goes up for them. And again, back to bringing money into the industry, that's exactly what that does. So there'll always be that personal thing because that's what we are, who we are at a core and who they are. But I'm excited for the day when we get, you know, sponsorship dollars, and all of them are making six figures in sponsorship dollars. And, you know, they're on the covers of these big time magazines and on Good Morning America and The Late Night with Jimmy Kimmel and all these, you know, all these shows. That's the dreams and goals that I get excited about. I'm like, we're going to do it. We're going to have them on the same level, these, you know, country music stars, you know, cause they can be, but it's cool that, you know, if you want to meet JB, you want to meet the Rockers, you want to meet the Stetsons, you can. Yep. And they're going to give you the time and shake your hand and take a photo, and it changes a lot of lives.
Yeah. I was speaking to a lady on an earlier podcast, and she does a lot of camera work, a lot of media work for events. And I asked her, because the only time I've really ever experienced or even thought about the possibility of a paparazzi going on is a Don Bella.
Yeah.
And it's like, I never really thought about it. You know, I mean, Don is, you know, he doesn't make it look like that, but they're walking around down in the stockyards and somebody starts snapping pictures of them. I was like, I've never thought about that in our industry. So I point blank asked her, I was like, is there such thing as paparazzis around this stuff? And she's like, well, more than anything, like when there's autograph signing and stuff, you see repetitive people.
Avid fans.
Yes. Over and over again. Yep. More than you will see somebody disrespect their space or try to pop into their space. Yeah. That's not a lot of that. It's more you see the same faces over and over.
They're loyal. Yes. We're loyal people. And, you know, when we talk to people that aren't from this industry, about, you know, about brands, about sponsorships, one of my reoccurring themes is you will not find a more loyal group of people than this industry. Right. If you come in and support our industry, you have a consumer. You know, Pendleton Whiskey is a great example. Like, they support this industry. When I go to buy whiskey, I'm 99% of the time, unless for some reason it's not on the shelf, I'm getting Pendleton Whiskey because I'm going to give back to the people that give into our industry. And so, you know, they are just, it's just a very loyal industry. And I think once they get in, they see that. They see like, hey, these people are, they're going to have your back and they're going to keep you in business. And as long as you're good to them, they're going to be good to you. But yeah, the paparazzi is a funny thing because last year NFR, we had a Don Bella come to NFR and they sat in our suite and they were on our pre-show, and it was wild because we went from one pre-show to another pre-show, and then it was probably a I don't know, 500 yards walk to our suite from where the pre-show was. I've seen a lot of people swarm at some of the Cowboys, not swarm, like, oh, you know, Stetson, Rocker, can I get your photo? Can I get a video? Like stop, you know, try to stop him. JB, it's really hard sometimes walking with JB. You know, when I got into the Western industry through PBR. I worked at IMG Academy. I wanted to get back to Colorado, and so I transferred internally to PBR. That's how I got my start in Western sports, and that's when JB was still riding. That's how I became close with him, and you know, him and Samantha and his family. But like, that's a wild one. You go to PBR events or rodeos and JB, like, to the point where sometimes I'm like, all right, we're going. I'll be the bad cop. And sometimes, and Haley Kinsel in FR, I've done this so many times. You know, when I was at Cavender's and she was one of our sponsored athletes, and then we had sponsored her with Teton for a while. And trying to get that girl through Cowboy Christmas after an autograph session, is wild. It is, I mean, it is like, if you want an Olympic sport for a day, try to get her efficiently through, like, you know, hey, she's got to go because she has to get sister ready for the perf and come back and like get in game mode. And, you know, I'm always that person. I'm never going to put these athletes in a position where they have to be the bad cop with fans. I will 100% put my, you know, they don't usually know me. So it's like, I'll put my reputation and say, hey, she can't stop. Like, she has to go take care of the horses. She has to get in game mode. I would never put that on an athlete. But, and that's the same thing with JB. So I'm always like, hey, like, are we running? Are we stopping? What are we doing here? But it is, the Bella situation was, so I've seen that side. But then when we did that walk across the hallway, I have never seen girls swarm as quickly as I've seen people swarm at Bella Hadid. And like, I've known Bella, like who she was, you know, I'm not big into like the fashion modeling world. I knew, you know, the base about her kind of thing. But it was wild. Like I have never seen anything like it and I'm like, and I knew out in the, you know, mainstream world, maybe it'd be like that a little bit more, but I guess I just didn't anticipate like being inside the Thomas and Mack and like the entire like Cowboy Channel lounge area just went whoosh, to where we're like, man, we got, and then, and they're all so cool. Cause like, they have security and stuff, but they don't think much of it. Like they're just going off there. They think they're normal people. Yeah. And she was like, hey, I have to go to the bathroom out here. And I was like, whoa. Yeah. Where's your security? Like, I know it's right there. Like, yeah. It's cool. And she's brought so much notoriety to this industry and just eyeballs to this industry. Like we did that event with her and Adon during New York Fashion Week that Teton had with Brumbaugh did, I guess 2 years ago now. In the meatpacking district, and I still see those photos all the time. You know, like all the major, you know, Vogue and E! News and People, and like it was crazy. And so it's I love now still seeing those moments that come up on social, and they utilize those photos for. It's a different topic of conversation they're talking about, but like, hey, that was at a Western event, like that, you know. And the more that we can keep getting, I'm big on trying to get more celebrities and notable people at events and just meeting our athletes and stuff, because it's such a cool too. We all see these big athletes, NFL, and you know, as these big stars, like, you know, like, oh, the coolest part is when they get to meet our cowboys and cowgirls. Mm-hmm. The respect and admiration that they have for our athletes is really special, and our athletes they know that they're professional athletes, and they know, you know, they're passionate about what they do, and they put in a lot of work. But it's really cool getting to see that moment when they realize, like, Brett Kiesel from the, you know, Pittsburgh Steelers legend thinks I'm a badass because I run barrels or I ride bulls, and that's a cool thing to experience. And, you know, bringing more of that in here is really exciting.
Yeah. I remember when Bella and Don started dating, we, in the cutting industry, we didn't know. We're just like, okay. Yeah. I didn't know much about Bella. I didn't even really know who she was. Yeah. And then it took them about 6 months for everybody to catch on what was going on. And then all that stuff started happening. But she is the sweetest person in the world. Yeah. Don's cool as he can be. Like, they don't pay no attention. No. You know, and other than when they get into big stuff like the NFR and stuff like that, that's, you know, the cutting industry kind of sheltered a little bit because everybody kind of...
Yeah, we have to shelter them a little bit more, but they still, like, you know, they get in that suite and they were in there yelling and cheering for the athletes and the animals and just being normal fans. And, you know, I think it was funny because I think that her security guy had gone and got her, like, you know, so she didn't have to go to the concession stands, that he just went and bought like a smorgasbord of stuff. And it was like tacos and all these things. And they were like, she came back, she's like, I just want a hot dog. Like, I just want a concession stand hot dog. And it was like, man, she's just one of us. Like, she just wants to come to a rodeo, have that really good Thomas and Mack hot dog. And it's a cool thing.
Everything has, you know, that kind of stuff has an experience. The taste of the hot dog there, you know, I feel like that's everywhere in different types of sports, from Western to to mainstream. But so if you had to define exactly what Teton Ridge was or is, sorry,
Yeah.
what would it, in a nutshell?
Yeah.
How can you explain it?
So we're a premier Western sports media and entertainment company. At the core of what we do is media, Cowboy Channel, Cowboys and Indians. Lifestyle, we have our Teton Ridge entertainment team out in LA who just acquired the rights to Lonesome Dove. They're working on some documentaries. They have a lot of stuff going out there in the film industry out there. And then we have, Higher Boots. We're a majority investor in Higher Boots. That goes into that lifestyle realm. And then events and the events and sporting side. So we have the American Rodeo. We're presenting sponsor, the National Finals Rodeo. We have the Arizona Ridge Riders, which is one of the PBR bull riding teams. So at the core of what we do is those pillars of Western media, sports, and entertainment and lifestyle. We put entertainment and lifestyle kind of in the same category. And within all those different business units, they all have the same thing in common, which is the Western lifestyle. Everything is being brought together to advance and grow the Western lifestyle, in all those different buckets of areas. And we talked for a long time. I've been here for 4 years. I've been with them for 4 years now, so pretty close to the inception. So I've been through it all, the ups and downs along the way, and it took us a while to realize. We love to say to realize what we wanted to be when we grew up. There's so many facets to this industry in the Western space. And, we got in with, we bought Cowboys and Indians magazine. We acquired there's so many things that we acquired. And the ultimate goal was, how do we make all these things work together? And what are our priorities? And that is media, lifestyle, and entertainment is very much our priorities and what we're utilizing to be the catalyst to take this industry further. And seeing how that all comes together is really cool. Hey, we have Cowboy Channel. We own, we are the largest media rights holder in Western sports because we have the PRCA media rights. How do we utilize that to tell athlete stories on our own channel? How do we then utilize Cowboys and Indians to feature them there? How do we utilize our American Rodeo champions? How do we use our bull riders? All those things come together to really create a really cool flywheel that just helps elevate everything that we're, this industry. So that's the synopsis of it all. We got a lot going on. It's crazy. Yeah. Sometimes I wake up and I go through my day and I'm like, I just worked on like 12 different things that all work together in some way, but they're all also completely different.
Right. Well, I'm excited to have you on the podcast for that reason, is just go through, reiterate the things, because I respect Teton Ridge. I think they've done a great job with helping promote the business, and they could have put money somewhere else, but they put it in the Western industry, and I think that's awesome that they're backing that and growing it, because all the purses, everything has gone up.
Yeah.
Yeah, push the market completely.
And our ownership group, they own a lot of other major entities. They're part owners of the Lakers, the Dodgers. They just acquired an F1 team. So they're infiltrating a lot of different sporting entities that are much larger. And so what's great for us is that we have those aspirations. They believe in us enough to say, hey, you guys can be this too, and we're going to help you tell us. And we have a really great team that, within the Teton infrastructure, that all really have this big picture mindset of what is the industry, where has the industry been? A lot of our staff have grown up in the industry. We also have staff that didn't grow up in this industry that bring a lot of outside experience. How do we bring those two things together? And we see how some of the other entities have grown in the just major scale that they're on, and we get to utilize some of that expertise and learn from them, to put it in our court and say, hey, this is our world, and there's so much more world that we can take over from a Western perspective. I went down to for the American Rodeo, we have super qualifiers now. Right now we have 2, I believe, 3 in the United States, 1 in Canada, which is St. Tite. and one in Brazil, which is the Barretos. So I've gone down to the Barretos the past 2 years, and it's the largest rodeo in the world. Hundreds of thousands of people over, I think, 9 days, maybe 10 days. And their admiration for the American rodeo and the Western lifestyle, it is the coolest thing to see how that how that spreads through and infiltrates into other countries. They have different cultures. They don't speak the same language, but they still have the same values and belief in and love and passion for the Western industry. And we know there's pockets of, Australia, New Zealand. There's so much more out there. And even the United States, I don't want to discredit that we've done it all in the United States. There's so much more, of the United States to bring into this industry. And that's what, that's where it's like these big dreams and big aspirations. We know the market that's out there. We know how many more people we can bring in here. And, I think when you have an ownership team and a staff and an executive team and the people that funnel down that all have this passion for this sport or not even the sport, this lifestyle. I wasn't from this industry, and I left after I left Cavender's. I went outside for I think 3 months before I came back in the industry, and it was really the only reason why I left is because I wanted to move to Fort Worth, where the core of the industry was, and I wasn't going to be able to keep that, keep my role there, and so I had to find a new opportunity. But I am so passionate about this industry, and I'm an outsider, and so having a team and having an executive staff, ownership group that all has the same belief and the love and the passion for this, that takes a business so far. You got to have the skill and the knowledge, but if you don't have that passion for really, hey, we all believe in the same thing, you're gonna hit a ceiling because you're gonna stop trying new things. You're gonna stop thinking big. You're gonna stop. What else? What else can we do? Where else can we take this? And I really do believe that this industry's been around for 1 million years. The sport's been around for, it's the original sport. Maybe the lacrosse industry might argue, because obviously Native Americans played that. But it's just, you love it. And it's something that we believe in, and there's so much opportunity.
I think, sometimes I have to sit here and pinch myself because, I don't realize until after an event or something like that, all the people that I know on a friend basis or can go have a conversation with, that people would die to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it just, when we're just talking like normal people, but I don't realize how many connections you have and all the things. And you're like, it's like you talked about, there's people that would love to meet JB Mooney. And to be able to be in the same circle and he know your name and talk to you and all, you take that for granted sometimes when and you're like, man, this is really cool life that I have.
Completely. And, working in content and social media, especially for events and working with these athletes, I put a lot of pressure on myself and take a lot of pride in, I get to be in spaces, in rooms, in opportunities, in experiences that 99% of the world will, I'll say fan base, right now, the fan base will never get to experience. I was on the back of the bucking chute when Kaiki Pacheco realized he won $2.1 million at the American Rodeo, insanity. And I put that pressure on myself to say, my role, I have to be able to showcase this moment for everybody else. That is what, for social and content, sometimes people are like, oh, you just post on social media. No, my responsibility is to make every other fan feel and understand what that moment was and feel like they were there. I am the eyes of millions of people, and my responsibility is to bring people that moment, because that's life-changing moments, And so when I go, people are always like, oh, I have a cool job. I'm not gonna lie. People are always like, how do you get into this? How do you get into this? How do you get your job? And I'm like, a lot of freaking hard work, going to a lot of events, talking to a lot of people. I had no business being successful in this industry because I didn't grow up in this industry. Right? It took a lot for me to get. I spent a lot of time, instead of hanging out, going to a Cowboys game or going on vacation, I go to rodeos because I needed to learn every little thing and witness it and do that stuff. But that's where, for me, they're like, oh, you get to go to, you go to Cheyenne, you just go and hang out and mingle and have all this fun. I'm like, yeah, but my role is making sure that we capture all those moments of Rocker Steiner to be able to do this documentary so that you feel connected with him and we grow this sport. Yeah. And I take a lot of ownership in that because, and I'm lucky in that way. I feel grateful that I get to experience those moments, but, that's what social media has brought to us is that, it can be a pain in a lot of ways. I realize it, there's a lot of chatter out there, but the cool part is that it's brought an opportunity to bring people closer to people that they never thought that they would have access to. Because, like people feel like, if you get followed by, JB Mooney follows you one day. If you're a young bull rider and he goes scrolling on Instagram and he follows you, even if you've never met him, you feel like, I know JB Mooney. Or if you follow, I'll use Casey Field. I love using Casey Field as a social example of, you may never ever have met Casey Field, but when you get on social media and he's doing his videos out here slamming stakes in the ground and everything else in retirement and, working on his equipment. And I mean, that's who he is. And you get an opportunity to feel like you're connected with these people. And it's a really cool thing. But, I'm grateful in that way and to have the job I do, but it's, I want everybody else to be able to have these experiences and we get to walk in a room with some of these people, which is really awesome. And most people don't, and you do start taking it for granted. And that's when, when you're at an event and kids are running up to Rocker, you kind of, there was lots of times this summer, I step back and I'm like, this is awesome. Like, these are the moments this is why, I'm running autograph cards back and forth and sweating, my hair's on top of my head because we just made that kid's day, and that might have changed his life. You have no idea. Right. And I'm grateful that we get to live some of those moments.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. If you were talking to an 18-year-old, or you're talking to your 18-year-old self, what advice would you give?
Oh Lord, hang on. No, looking back when I'm my 18-year-old self, a couple of things. One, advice that somebody gave me that kind of has really stuck with me is you can always come home. I'm from a small town in Indiana, 1,000 people. I never had any, my dad is a product engineer in the automotive industry. My mom was an HR director, all within the same hometown that my parents, they are high school sweethearts. I went to the same high school my parents went to, it was a great place to grow up. And I went off to college. I went out of state to college. I went and my college roommate I never met before. I was thrown in blindly. I moved every time for job. I moved a lot for jobs, for opportunity, because, my professional life is a really big part of my satisfaction in life. I've really chased, success. That's a big part of where my happiness comes from. And when I had gotten a job, I had applied for a job at IMG Academy. I was living in Denver at the time. I loved it. I'd worked for the Broncos for the season. I'd fallen in love with Colorado. That my friend group in Denver, it felt like home. It was like after college, it's easy to kind of find your friends in college because you have a lot of commonalities, but then you get thrown into the real world, and it's a lot different trying to find like your friends that you didn't grow up with. And I think for me, I applied for this job because it was a dream job. And I was like, and it was the very last day it was open. I was like, I don't apply for this job, I'm going to regret it. I didn't anticipate, I'd gotten so many, sorry, but we didn't hire you, or like rejections at the time. I was a freelancer and I was looking for a full-time job. And I was like, oh no, it's going to be another rejection. But hey, I have to apply or I'm going to regret it. And Lord have mercy, I got the damn job. And I'm like, no, that's not what's supposed to happen. Like, I wasn't ready I'm not leaving. The job was in Florida. I was like, there is no part of me who wants to move to Florida. Like, I've fallen in love. And my friends had told me that, I got a couple of friends and they were like, you can always come home. You can always take the chance. And that stuck with me because people always ask me, how have I gotten where I've gotten? And it's because I've moved a lot of places. I've left a lot of my comfort zone to chase an opportunity that I felt. And that's how I keep And that's not necessarily for how everybody, there's a lot of people who are at the same level and they've taken a completely different path,
Right.
But for me, that's what's been really successful. So I've always told, I talk to a lot of youth and even college kids. I'm always like, you can always come home. You'd rather take the chance. You'll learn something from it. And if you put 110% effort, you haven't half-assed it, you put your whole ass into it and you tried and it doesn't work out, you know where you can go and it's safe. So that's kind of one of them. I think, another one is, for me, is you're allowed to enjoy life. I think as you leave your adolescence and teenage years and you start to get in, become a grown up and all this stuff, sometimes there's this expectation that like, I have to be serious and everything has to be like a big decision and I can't have fun anymore. I can't be optimistic. I can't, it doesn't have to be that way. Like if you're not having fun, if you're not enjoying life you're not going to enjoy everything. There's parts of my job that I dread. Everybody has that, there's certain things you have to do in life you don't necessarily want to do. There's certain cards you get dealt that you don't want to have to, it's not how you ideally would have had it, but you have to keep it fun and something fun and joyous and lightheartedness. And, I'm big on positivity and optimism. Like sometimes you can't be afraid if you walk into a room and people just are here, you can't be afraid to be that disruptor. You can't afraid to walk in and say, hey, how are you? And just be that uplifting energy. I think people feel like sometimes they have to not dumb down, but like lower the energy or like, oh, it's just really bad. No one's real excited about this. But if you are, you can't be afraid to light up that room, know? And I think the last thing is when I was 18, I had goals. I had expectations of how I thought my life was going to play out. I think everybody does, right? Like I'm gonna be married by a certain age. I'm gonna have this job. I'm making this money. I'm gonna live here. I'm gonna have a yacht. I'm gonna have a beach house. I'm gonna have a mountain house. All these things, and it's good to have those goals. But you also live a lot between when I was 18 and now, and you experience a lot. If I would have made my success solely based off the expectations and the goals I had when I was 18. My life would be a complete failure. I would consider my life a complete failure. So you have to be willing to say, I have these goals and expectations, but you have to be okay with those adjusting and being nimble and pivoting. Pivoting is a big thing in life. I think that you have to learn that ability to pivot. But, I'm really proud of the success I have. And, there's a lot more I want to achieve in life. But I would look back on it now thinking about some of those things at 18 that I would say, my life would be categorized as a failure to my 18-year-old self had I not been okay with those changes.
And that's the biggest reason why I asked that question, because I think that is a pivoting point in your life. You're getting out of high school. Typically, the world, you're like, oh crap, here it comes. I thought I was all ready for this, and I've been sassy with my mom and dad, and
100%.
I got this. And then I know the feeling because I've had it at that age, and I was like. And everything you just said is good stuff, because I feel like people need to be able to pivot and make a change. I think a lot of people get in the rabbit hole of looking at what they're supposed to be on social
100%.
media. And they get so trapped in their head, especially females.
Yeah.
Just because I've raised 2 twin daughters that are 18 and they get in their head about stuff that they're supposed to look this way, their hair's supposed no, baby, do what you do.
Yeah.
Everything else will find its way.
100%. And it took me a while to, not that I was some like, I gotta be just like all those people. I've kind of always been a big personality and found my way. But, even the older I get, like, I never understood when people were like, I don't like confrontation. I'm not I brush a lot of things off. I'm pretty like, I don't get real riled up and angry. If I get mad at somebody, it's usually over in a day. Like I don't hold a lot of grudges. I don't know. That's just who I am. And so, I try to be nice to everybody. I'm big energy. I try to be optimistic, positive. And so people always said, like, there's this thing when you start getting successful that no matter what you do or, whatever that is, people are just not going to like you. And you have to learn to be okay with not being liked. And I'm a people pleaser at heart. Like, I want everybody to love me. I want everybody to love each other. And, you know, I don't want anybody to ever fight. And it's funny because, you know, cowboys they're a little tough sometimes. So it stresses me out sometimes when they want to go confront somebody. And I'm like, no, why? Why do we have to do this? Why can't we all just, it's fine. Like, let's
peace and love.
Brush it off, move on. Like, let's go. You want to get a drink? You want to go? Like, let's go. You know, but that's a big thing kind of to that, you know, I have had to learn it's not everybody's going to love you. No matter how many things you do right, no matter how many things that you think you're doing the right way, if you're following every T in the book to saying, I did everything that I was taught of how I was supposed to do it, that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. People are going to either like you, you're going to be their cup of tea, or you're not going to be their cup of tea, and you have to be okay with that. And I think that falls into the expectations of, like, you know, I need to be a certain way, I need to act a certain way. And that's where for me, the fun comes in, you know, like it's crazy to me how many people think they have to dress a certain way and act a certain way in order to, like, achieve a certain thing. And I'm like, that's a way to do it. Yeah. I'm not saying there's a wrong or right way. That's just not my way. And I can tell you that I've been lucky enough to, you know, find the people that value my hard work. For me, hard work is the biggest thing. If you got to prove yourself. I don't like talking about, you know, all the things I do and I've achieved and all those things. I feel I'm very humble, but I've also learned you have to be your biggest cheerleader. And just because you talk about I'm successful, that's okay. Mm-hmm. That's something to celebrate, you know. But sometimes that can be hard because I'm like, I'm not cocky. I'm not trying to be that, but I know I put in a lot of damn work to earn where I've been, and that's something to be proud of. Yeah.
If you had to define your grit in one word.
One word, oh Lord. As you can tell, one word's hard for me. Oh, my grit. My grit. I would say one word to describe my grit. I don't know. Tenacity. High energy is not even one word. That sucks. I don't know. My grit is overcoming, breaking through walls. I can't come up with one word, I guess. I failed this question on you. I'm sorry. I just think of grit, you know, like there's so many things you can't control. And I think a person's grit is determined based on how you overcome those things that you can't control. How do you get through the wall? How do you break through the wall? How do you overcome adversity when you can't, and the things that you can't control? You know, my grit, I'm a hard worker, probably to a fault of like, what's work-life balance? I don't know. Work is part of my life. I love what I do, and I love the people I get to work with, and I get to love the things I work on. That's just become part of me. But that's part of my grit. My grit is problem solving. I'm not one to say, if you say, hey, this isn't going to work, I'm not one to say, that sucks. Right. Guess we're moving on. No, we're going to find a damn way. We're going to find a way to get this done. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what my one word grit. Let me come back to you someday. Okay. I'll put it in the comments.
By NFR.
Yeah.
I want to hear you scream it.
Okay. I got this. In the Rodeo Vegas one night, I'll make sure that everybody leaves that place knowing what my grit word is.
There you go.
You know, we'll make sure that everybody knows what my grit word is, because I think there's a lot of characteristics that I had that it's like my superpower of grit, but one word really puts a limitation on it. Yeah. I'll read the dictionary.
It's a struggle bus for a lot. Well, Jenna, I appreciate you hanging out with us.
Hey, absolutely. It was a pleasure being here. Thank you for having me on.
Yes, ma'am. We're in a lot of rooms together. It's finally get to talk.
I know.
Know each other's face.
I know, and now we have 15 days of NFR coming up, so it's just the beginning. We have a long, Q4 together.
You didn't have to bring that up.
I know. I know. Okay, I'm like, okay, there's 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I don't know. I'm like, right now, in about a couple weeks. Okay. Yeah. But I don't know. It's one of those things. It's exciting. It's stressful leading into NFR, as you know, for anybody in the industry. I'm like, everybody just give everybody that goes there a little grace. Yeah. But damn, there's nothing. It's the most exhilarating, fun 10 days of just, it's a giant reunion, and you don't know how you get through it. you're like, I got like 5
It's a
hours of
nonstop
sleep.
reunion.
Yeah.
Like, it could be during the day reunion with some people, and then the next day.
Yeah, you're like, I got 5 hours
door.
of sleep. I got 3 hours of sleep. And then you and you're like, how do you do it? And you're like, I don't know. You just don't stop. You just go. And at the end of it,
they dump meth in the air in those casinos and stuff.
gosh, that air just breathes life into you, literally.
Really. All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in to Grip Brandon. I'll talk to you soon.